Okay, in this video, we are going to begin to look at factoring. So you will need two things to get through this besides this handout. You are going to need your calculator, and in your spiral book, you are going to need page 129 because we want all these factors to help us with this. So before we start actually factoring, I just want to remind you how the other day when we were in class, we went from factored form to standard form, and I called this the neighbors meeting the neighbors, which is also known as FOIL, first, outside, inside, last. And it's actually this idea of FOIL, the neighbors meet the neighbors, that I really need to make sure you understand. So when I multiply the first terms, I get 2x squared. And then when I multiply the outside terms, I get a 3x. And then I multiply the inside terms, and I get a negative 2x. And then I multiply the last terms, and I get negative 3. And then I can simplify this by combining my like terms and get this as my answer. So let's look at that one more time. First, x and x make x squared. X with negative 2 makes negative 2x. 1 with x makes 1x. And 1 with negative 2 makes a minus 2. And then I'll clean it up, combine my like terms. And again, we've gone from factored form to standard form. So in the factoring I'm going to show you today, we're going to be doing just the opposite. I'm going to give you factored form, like this, and we're going to work our way back. Sorry, I think I said that wrong. I'm going to give you standard form, and we're going to work our way back to factored form. So essentially what we're going to be doing is we are going to try and see who are the neighbors that met, or who are going to meet, to make this. All right? And it's very important that you do understand the idea of FOIL, first, outside, inside, last. So to get this process started, I'm going to go ahead and set up my neighbors, set up my factors, and then I'm going to make this x. And you have seen this x you saw in Algebra 1. I told you about this in Algebra 2 as well. And it works like this. You take the first and the last term, as long as this is in standard form. So m squared, then the m, and then a term with no numbers. And I'm going to multiply those, and I get negative 3m squared, and that goes in the top part of my x. And then the middle term, the 2m, goes in the bottom. And so now what we need to do is we need to find the factors of 3 that somehow make 2, whether through adding or subtracting. And so that's where this page comes in. If you don't know your factors of 3, you can look here and you'll see that there are 1 and 3. And I'll be putting a 1 with an m and a 3 with an m. And I'll have to do a little adjusting because 1 times 3 does not make negative 3m. And 1 plus 3, if you remember, is what's supposed to make the bottom. And 1 and 3 make 4. So if I make the 1 negative, now when I multiply negative 1m and 3m, I get the negative 3m squared. And when I add these, negative 1m and 3m, I get a 2m. So my x is complete. And these numbers have done their job. I don't need them anymore. I just need these numbers. So we're going to start to see who were the neighbors that met. And so just to remind you, when x met 2x, so when this first term met this first term, we got the first term of our standard form. And when this first term met this first term, we got the first term of our standard form. So that's what we're going to go through first. Who would have to meet to make m squared? And so that will just be an m and an m. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make what I call the face. And to make the face, you're going to take m, you're going to go to the last terms, m with the last terms, so that's, sorry, the outer terms, I'm not saying that right. And then m with this empty space, and I hope you see like this kind of weird face. Here are the eyes, and then here's the top of the head and like a smile. And so what we're going to do is have these loops here get these numbers. So what I'm going to do is first is ask myself, can I take m times something and make negative 1m? And if I take m and multiply it with the negative 1, I get this negative 1m. And then I'll ask myself, can I take m times something and make this 3m? And I can take it times a positive 3. And now these are the neighbors that meet. if this neighbor meets this neighbor, just to show you real quick how that works kind of overall, putting it together now. M meets M, I get M squared. M meets -1, I get -1M. 3 meets M, and I get 3M. 3 meets -3, and I get -3. And if you notice, once I clean it all up, I get standard form. I get exactly what I started with. So let's practice this again. So this is standard form. I will need factored form. I want to know the neighbors who met, so I'm going to go ahead and set up my neighbors. And then I'm going to come over here and make my x. And I'm going to get the x by taking x squared times 3, which is 3x squared. And then the middle term will go in the bottom. And now I'm going to ask myself, what are the factors of 3 that can make -4? And if you don't want to think about the negative right now, just factors of 3 that make 4. Again, these are the only factors of 3, so I'll be putting 3x and 1x in there. But this doesn't quite work. When I multiply these, I do get the 3x squared on top. But when I add these, I don't get -4x. I get a +4x. So if I make these both negative, now when I multiply them, the negative and the negative make the +3, and the x make the x squared. And then when I add these, I get the -4x. So these numbers have done their job. Don't need them anymore. These are the numbers that I wanted. So again, when this first term meets this first term, you get the first term of standard form. So what times what can make x squared? Well, that's going to be x and x. And now I'm going to draw my face. So here's the top of the head. Here's the smile. And now I'm going to have these loops help me get this. So x times what can make -3x? Well, that's a -3. That one's done. And then x times what can make -1x? And that's a -1. So if I took the time and had these neighbors meet, I'll get x squared when these meet. And then when x meets -3, I get a -3x. When -1 meets x, I get a -1x. And then when -1 meets -3, I get a +3. I can clean it up, and I'll see that I get right back to what I started with. So I don't want to be checking this every time. I'm just trying to show you how that works. So we're going to try a few more together, and then I'm going to have you practice a little bit on your own. So here, I want to find the neighbors who met. So make my neighbors, make my factors. I'm going to get the x, and this time when I multiply 5v squared with 12, that is 60v squared. And then the -19v will go in the bottom. And now 60 has a lot of factors. So that's why I want to be able to pull up our factor page. Which of these numbers will somehow get me 19? I'm not even going to worry about the negative right now. So that won't. That would get me 61 and 59. This could get me 32 or 28. But eventually when I get to 4 and 15, those will make 19. And those are the only set. I should check all of them. No others will make 19. So I'm going to put 4v and 15v. And I'll have to do a little adjusting because while the 4v and the 15v make 60, when I add these I get 19v and I want -19v. So I'm going to put negative signs there. These numbers are done. They've done their job, and these are the ones I'm going to focus back on. So now, remember, this first term and this first term, when these neighbors meet, we will get 5v squared. So just like before, to get m squared, I needed m and m. To get x squared, I needed x and x. So to get the v squared, I'm going to need v and v. But now I have numbers. What numbers can multiply to get 5? And if you don't know that, again, you can go back to your list, and you will see the only numbers that will multiply for 5 will be 1 and 5. So I'm going to I like to put the bigger one first. And this one that I wrote, you can technically not put it there. You can make it invisible, but I think for the beginning it would be helpful. And now I'm going to make my face, top of the head, and the smile. And now I'm going to ask myself, what can 5 multiply to something to get -4v? And it can't. But 5 can multiply with the -3 to get -15. So 5 times -3, or I should say 5v times -3 makes this -15v. And that means I'll have to have the 1 multiply to something to make -4v, and that would be a -4. And then we're done. You have found the factors. If you took the time, had these neighbors meet, you will get back to this. So let's try another one. I need to have my neighbors, the factors, and I'm going to make my x. So multiply those for 24x squared. The 14 goes in the bottom. And now I need factors of 14 that, I'm sorry, factors of 24 that make 14. So if you don't know them, which of these will make 14, whether I add or subtract them? And that would be our 2 and 12. So I'm going to put 2x and 12x. And just for a note, I haven't said this, but I could actually put the 12 here and the 2 here. That doesn't matter. So again, these numbers have done their job. I don't need them. These are the only ones I would care about. So let's make our face. We're ready. So not quite yet, sorry. So remember the first term and the first term make this. So as the others, I'll need an x and an x to get the x squared. And now the numbers that would multiply to make 3, if you don't know, again, go back to your little list. It's only 1 and 3. So I like to put the bigger one first and the smaller number second. And now make your face, so top of the head and the smile. And now, you know, when I look at what number to start with, I always put the bigger one first because one can make 2 with the loop and one can make 12 with the loop. So that's why I force myself to work with the one that is not as easygoing. 1 can get any of these numbers, but 3 can't get both of these numbers. 3 can only make 12. So 3x times what can make 12x? That's a positive 4. And that one's done. And then 1x times what makes 2x? That would be a positive 2. And now you found your factors. You went from standard form to factored form. So 2 more. We're going to step these up. So go ahead and make my neighbors. Go ahead and make my x. And fill out the x. 4x squared times negative 12 is negative 48x squared. The middle term goes in the bottom. And now I'll need factors of 48 that will somehow make 13. So let's find that real quick. Here's 48. So which of these will make 13? And I hope you see that it will be 3 and 16. Keeping past, those won't make 13. So 3 and 16. And right now, 3 and 16, as they are, don't work. So I'll have to make one of these negative to get the negative 48, but I want to make the correct one negative to get positive 13, and that would be a negative 3. These numbers are done. These are the ones we want. So what times what makes 4x squared? But remember, x times x is the 4x squared. But now we run into a problem because the numbers that can make 4 are either going to be 2 and 2 and 1 and 4. So which ones would work? And the more you do this, the better you'll get, but let's just try 2 and 2. So when I try to do a loop, 2 can make 16, so that would work, but this 2 could never make negative 3. So my choosing of 2 and 2 was actually not a very good choice. And I don't have an eraser, as it looks like I thought I would, so I'm just going to have to write over it. And so instead of 2 and 2, I'm going to have to use 4 and 1. And 4 is more picky than 1. 1 can make either of these, but 4 can only make 16. So when I make my face, 4 times what can make 16, or 4x times what makes 16x? That's a positive 4. That one's done. So 1x times what can make negative 3x? That would be a negative 3. All right, let's try one more. So I'll have to find my factors. I'll have to find my neighbors, making the x. I need factors of negative 10r squared. That will make 3r. Looking at my list, factors of 10, there are not that many. But 1 and 10, 2 and 5, 2 and 5 can make 3. So I'll put 2r and 5r. And I'm going to have to make something negative to accommodate the top and the bottom. And if I make the 2 negative, when I multiply, I get negative 10. And when I add them, I get 3r. All right, so here we go. What times what makes 10r squared? Well, I'm going to need an r and an r to get the r squared. And now for 10, realize for 10, we already looked at 10. Will it be 1 and 10 or 2 and 5? So let's try 1 and 10. Again, I like to put the bigger one first. I want to use a regular pencil. Hold on. 10 and 1. So let's see if that works. So again, 1 can make either of these. It's more about, will 10 make either of these, which it won't. So I actually shouldn't have put 10 and 1. So instead I'm going to do 5 and 2 now. So 5, which one can 5 make? Well, 5 can make 5r. So if I draw my face, 5 times what? 5r times what makes 5r? That would be a positive 1. Here's my smile. 2r times what makes a negative 2r? That would be a negative 1. So your job now is to finish the back. All right? That's it. Have a great weekend.